The morning sun was just beginning to peek over the hills of the small town. The streets were dusty and the wooden stalls of the auction yard creaked under the weight of the early crowd. Farmers, traders, and curious townsfolk had gathered, their voices mixing with the clatter of horse hooves and the occasional bark of a dog. It was the kind of day that felt ordinary at first, but for one young girl, it would become the day that changed her life forever. Clara stood near the edge of the yard, her hands clenched tightly around the thin fabric of her worn dress. She was only 17, but the hardships of life had made her seem older. Her family had lost nearly everything in the past year. Crop failures, a fire in their small home, and mounting debts had left them with nothing. Now Clara had been brought to the auction, where people were buying and selling whatever they could, and sometimes even the people themselves. Her heart pounded as the auctioneer's voice rang out. "Next item, folks. Young woman, 17, strong and healthy, ready for work." The words echoed around her and a chill ran down her spine. She felt exposed, like an animal being displayed for everyone to see. She tried to hold back tears, but her hands shook as she clutched the edges of her dress. The auctioneer's gavel hit the stand, and the bidding began. The crowd shouted out numbers, some more out of curiosity than interest. Clara heard a few low offers, some laughter, and even a comment about how little she was worth. $2. The number echoed in her mind, too small to even buy a proper meal. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting around for a familiar face, but there was none. Everyone seemed more interested in making a quick profit than in her future. As the bidding slowed, Clara began to lose hope. Maybe this was her fate, to be sold to someone who wouldn't care for her, someone who would only see her as labor. She looked down at the ground, trying not to imagine what awaited her. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a figure stepping forward. He was enormous, taller than any man she had ever seen, with broad shoulders and hands like tree trunks. His hair was dark and long, and his face, though rugged, carried a calm authority that made people step aside to give him space. The crowd murmured as he approached. "You're coming with me," he said in a voice deep and steady, looking directly at Clara. There was no hesitation in his words, only certainty. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The auctioneer's eyes widened. Some of the onlookers whispered, surprised at his sudden decision, but the mountain man did not care. He had made his choice, and that was enough. Clara felt a mix of fear and confusion. Who was this man? Why had he chosen her? Could she trust him? The questions swirled in her mind, but there was no time to answer them. The man extended his hand, and though it was large and intimidating, it carried a strange sense of reassurance. With trembling hands, Clara placed her hand in his, and together they walked out of the auction yard. The townsfolk watched them go, some shaking their heads in disbelief. A few whispered that he must be crazy to pay attention to a girl who was sold for $2. But Clara did not care about the whispers. Her thoughts were focused on what lay ahead. She followed him through the dusty streets, past the small shops and houses, and out into the open fields that led toward the mountains in the distance. The mountain man did not speak much, but his presence was comforting. Clara noticed the way he moved, steady and confident, as if he belonged to the wilderness more than the town. She wondered what kind of life he led, how he survived in the mountains, and why he had decided to take her with him. Each step seemed heavier than the last, but she forced herself to keep up, driven by a mix of curiosity and the faint hope that perhaps, just perhaps, her life could change for the better. As they walked, Clara tried to observe the man more closely. His eyes were sharp, always scanning the surroundings, and yet, when he looked at her, there was no judgment, only a quiet understanding. She realized that he saw her not as property or a tool, but as a person. That thought brought her a small measure of relief in the midst of her fear. The journey was long and the sun climbed higher in the sky. Clara felt the heat on her back, the fatigue in her legs, and the growing hunger in her stomach. But the man seemed unaffected, moving through the rough terrain as if it were nothing. He occasionally handed her water from a small flask and pointed out safe paths to avoid loose rocks or thorny bushes. His instructions were simple, direct, and caring, though he never spoke more than necessary. By the time the sun began to lower, casting golden light over the fields, they had reached the edge of the forest that led into the mountains. Clara stopped for a moment, catching her breath and looking back at the town in the distance. It seemed so small now, almost unreal. She realized she had left behind everything she had known. Her home, her friends, her family, and she did not know when or if she would return. Fear rose in her chest, but it was mixed with something new, a flicker of hope. The mountain man noticed her hesitation and spoke for the first time in a while. "It's safe here," he said simply. "I won't let anyone hurt you." There was no boast in his voice, only promise. Clara looked up at him and nodded, unsure if she trusted him completely but willing to try. For the first time in a long while, she felt that maybe, just maybe, someone cared enough to protect her. As they entered the forest, the shadows of the trees stretching long in the evening light, Clara felt a strange sense of awe. The wilderness was alive with sounds she had never heard in the town: the rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, the whisper of wind through the branches. It was both frightening and beautiful, and in that moment she realized that her life had changed forever. The auction, the crowd, the $2 price, all of it seemed like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the uncertainty and possibility of what lay ahead. And so, hand in hand with the giant mountain man, Clara took her first steps into a new life, a life that was unknown, challenging, and perhaps in time, filled with freedom, strength, and unexpected kindness. The days grew longer and Clara began to feel more at home in the forest. She no longer stumbled on every root or worried at every rustle of the leaves. The mountain man taught her how to move quietly, how to listen for the sound of animals, and how to read the wind. Each lesson brought a small victory and a growing confidence she had never known before. One morning he woke her before sunrise. "We will go hunting today," he said. Clara's stomach tightened with nervousness. She had never hunted before. Her life in the town had only been about chores and learning to survive in a limited way. The thought of being responsible for finding food for both of them was frightening. They walked silently through the forest, the ground soft under their feet. The mountain man stopped occasionally, pointing to footprints in the dirt or broken branches that indicated where animals had passed. Clara tried to follow his instructions carefully, mimicking his movements as best she could. She was clumsy at first, tripping over roots or snapping small twigs, but he remained patient. "The forest will teach you," he said. "You just have to listen." After hours of walking, they spotted a small deer near the edge of a clearing. The mountain man whispered instructions, showing Clara how to stay hidden and how to move slowly without alarming the animal. Clara's heart raced as she lifted her small handmade bow. She took a deep breath and aimed. Guided by the mountain man's quiet voice, the arrow flew straight and she hit the deer. For a moment she was stunned. She had done it. She had helped provide food for them both. The mountain man clapped her shoulder. "Well done," he said. Clara felt a surge of pride. She had always been small and timid, but now she realized she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. The forest, though dangerous, was also teaching her strength and skill. That evening, as they prepared the deer for their meal, Clara noticed how careful the mountain man was with every part. Nothing was wasted. He showed her how to use the hide, the meat, and even the bones for tools. Clara marveled at his knowledge. "You really know how to survive," she said softly. He looked at her and smiled, a rare, gentle smile that made her feel warm inside. "I have lived here a long time. The forest is harsh, but it teaches you everything you need to know. You are learning quickly. Soon you will survive on your own if needed." Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them grew stronger. They laughed at small accidents, shared stories of their pasts, and slowly, Clara began to feel like she belonged. The mountain man had saved her from a life of fear and uncertainty, and in return she offered him companionship and help. One afternoon, a sudden storm swept through the forest. Rain poured down in heavy sheets and the wind howled through the trees. Clara struggled to help gather wood for the fire, but it was slippery and difficult. The mountain man moved efficiently, securing their shelter and covering the fire pit. Clara slipped and nearly fell into the mud, but he caught her arm just in time. "You must keep your balance," he said calmly, pulling her upright. Clara's heart raced, not just from the fall, but from the realization that he had been watching over her constantly. She felt safe in a way she had never known. That night, as they sat by the fire, warm and dry, Clara could not help but ask questions about him. "Why did you save me?" she asked softly, the rain tapping against the roof of their shelter. He stared into the flames for a long moment. "I saw you were in danger. Many people would not care. I cannot save everyone, but I can save one person at a time. You were the one I could help." Clara felt tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from a strange mix of relief and gratitude. Someone had seen her value when others did not. Someone had chosen her, not for work or money, but because they cared enough to act. Over the next few weeks, the mountain man continued to teach her more advanced survival skills. He showed her how to track animals, how to recognize subtle signs of danger, and how to build stronger shelters. Clara was amazed at how much she was learning. She felt herself changing, growing stronger, smarter, and more capable with each passing day. One afternoon, they came across a narrow path along a cliff edge. The mountain man motioned for Clara to stay close. "Watch your step," he warned. Clara followed carefully, gripping his arm when the path became steep. At the end of the trail, they reached a small waterfall with a pool of clear water below. The beauty of the place took Clara's breath away. "It's beautiful," she whispered. The mountain man nodded, a rare softness in his eyes. "This is why I stay here. The forest gives you life if you learn to respect it." Clara realized that she was beginning to see the forest not as a place of fear, but as a home. The mountain man had not only saved her from danger, but he had opened her eyes to a world she had never known. She felt a deep respect for him, not just as a protector, but as a teacher and guide. One evening, as they prepared a simple meal, Clara looked at the man and said quietly, "I never thought I could survive like this. I didn't think I could ever be strong." He looked at her, his eyes serious but kind. "Strength is not just in the body. It is in the mind and the heart. You have both. That is why you will survive." Clara felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that he believed in her, even when she doubted herself. For the first time, she felt hope that her life could be more than fear and hardship. She had someone who trusted her, who guided her, and who would stand by her through challenges. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Clara and the mountain man sat silently by the fire. The forest was alive with sounds of evening birds and the gentle rustle of leaves. Clara felt a sense of peace she had never known. She knew that more challenges awaited her, but she also knew that she was not alone. For the first time, Clara understood that life was not just about surviving the next day. It was about learning, growing, and finding trust and friendship in unexpected places. And as she looked at the giant mountain man sitting beside her, she knew that her life had been forever changed, and that perhaps, in this wild forest, she had finally found a place where she belonged. Weeks passed in the forest, and Clara had grown stronger, braver, and more skilled. She could now move through the trees quietly, find food, and help build shelters. She had learned the ways of the forest, guided patiently by the mountain man. Yet, despite her growing confidence, there were moments when doubt and fear crept into her mind. One morning, the mountain man called her to a small ridge overlooking the valley below. "Look carefully," he said. Clara peered over the edge and saw the town in the distance. Smoke rose from chimneys and people moved about their daily tasks. Seeing it reminded her of the life she had left behind: family, friends, and familiar streets. For a moment, nostalgia and longing filled her heart. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked quietly, not looking at him. The mountain man's eyes were steady as he replied, "Sometimes, but life there is not always safe or fair. Here, you learn to rely on yourself. You gain freedom." Clara thought about his words. Freedom. She had never truly experienced it. In town, her life had been controlled by circumstance, by poverty, by the choices of others. Here she had choices. She could learn, grow, and even make mistakes without fear of being sold or hurt. The forest had become a place of safety, but it was also a place of responsibility. That evening, they returned to their camp after gathering firewood. Clara noticed a group of travelers approaching the edge of the forest. They were farmers from the town, and one of them called out her name. "Clara, is that you? Come back." Her heart leapt. It had been weeks since she had left the town, and now her past life had reached her. The mountain man stood quietly beside her, his face unreadable. Clara felt torn. Part of her wanted to run back to the safety of the town, to see familiar faces and perhaps return to the life she had lost. Another part of her wanted to stay in the forest with the man who had saved her and taught her to survive. "Do you want to go?" he asked softly, sensing her conflict. Clara hesitated. She had grown attached to him, to the forest, and to the life she had begun to build. But she also felt the pull of her past, the chance to reconnect with family and friends. She shook her head. I don't know," she admitted. He nodded, understanding. "You have a choice. I cannot make it for you. You must decide where your life belongs." The travelers called again, urging her to come with them. Clara took a deep breath and thought about all she had learned. She thought about the skills she had gained, the dangers she had faced, and the trust she had built with the mountain man. She realized that the forest had not only saved her life, but it had also taught her who she could be. "I want to stay," she said finally, looking at him. "I want to stay here with you." The mountain man's face softened and he nodded. "Then you have made the right choice," he said. "This life is not easy, but it is honest and strong. You will not regret it." That night, as they sat by the fire, Clara felt a sense of peace she had never known. She had made a choice for herself, not for anyone else, and it felt powerful. She looked at the mountain man and realized that their bond was deeper than friendship. He had rescued her from danger, taught her survival, and trusted her to make her own decisions. In return, she had come to trust him completely. The next morning, the mountain man decided to take her further into the forest, to a place where they could build a more permanent shelter. The journey was challenging, with steep hills, thick underbrush, and slippery rocks. Clara stumbled at times, but the mountain man was always there to steady her. Each step tested her balance, her strength, and her courage. Along the way, he continued to teach her advanced skills: how to start a fire in wet conditions, how to track elusive animals, and how to recognize changes in the weather. Clara listened carefully, remembering that her life depended not just on her courage, but on her knowledge and ability to act wisely. One afternoon, as they set up camp near a small clearing, Clara noticed a sudden rustling in the bushes. A wild animal, perhaps a small wolf, appeared, its eyes fixed on them. Clara froze, unsure what to do. The mountain man stepped in front of her calmly, motioning for her to stay behind him. "Do not panic," he whispered. "The forest respects courage and calm. Move slowly and it will likely move on." Clara followed his instructions, her heart pounding. The wolf sniffed the air, then, as if sensing their calmness, it turned and disappeared into the trees. Clara exhaled, realizing she had just faced a real danger and survived. She felt stronger, braver, and more capable than ever before. That evening, as they shared a simple meal, Clara reflected on her journey. She had come a long way from the auction, from the fear and uncertainty of being sold for $2. She had learned to survive, to trust, and to make decisions for herself. She understood now that strength was not just physical, but mental and emotional as well. The mountain man looked at her with quiet pride. "You have grown," he said. "You are no longer the girl from the auction. You are strong, capable, and wise. The forest has taught you well." Clara smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. She realized that she had found more than survival in the forest. She had found trust, friendship, and the ability to choose her own path. The auction, the fear, and the $2 price seemed like a distant memory now. She had taken control of her life, and she would not let it slip away. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Clara and the mountain man sat silently by the fire. The forest around them was alive with sounds of evening birds and the gentle rustle of leaves. Clara felt a sense of peace and determination. She knew that more challenges awaited, but she also knew that she was ready. For the first time, Clara understood that life was not just about surviving day by day. It was about making choices, learning from the world around her, and trusting in herself and those who cared for her. And as she looked at the mountain man, she realized that the bond they shared was unbreakable. A bond forged through trust, survival, and the courage to choose a new life. Her journey was far from over, but Clara knew she had made the right decision. She was no longer a frightened girl sold for $2 at an auction. She was a young woman ready to face the world, guided by wisdom, courage, and the quiet strength of the man who had changed her fate. The forest had become home. Clara had grown strong, confident, and skilled. She could move through the trees quietly, build shelters, catch fish, and even track animals. Her hands, once small and trembling, were now steady and capable, and though she had started this journey afraid and unsure, she now understood a simple truth. She could survive, and more than that, she could thrive. The mountain man and Clara had built a sturdy cabin on a small ridge, overlooking a stream that ran clear and fast. They had worked side by side for weeks, gathering wood, repairing the roof, and clearing the area around their home. Every evening they sat by the fire, sharing simple meals of fish, berries, and vegetables they had foraged. In those quiet moments, Clara realized she had grown to trust him completely, not just as a protector, but as a friend, a teacher, and someone who had changed her life forever. One morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, the mountain man stood at the edge of the clearing and looked out over the valley below. Clara joined him silently, feeling a sense of peace she had never known in the town she had left behind. "You have come far," he said softly. "You are ready for anything the forest gives you." Clara nodded, her eyes following the path of the stream as it wound through the trees. She remembered the auction, the fear, and the cold, hard way people had treated her. She remembered the $2 price that had seemed like the end of her world. But now, standing in the forest, she realized that those moments had led her to this life, a life filled with learning, freedom, and trust. Over the next few months, Clara and the mountain man faced many challenges. Storms swept through the forest, wild animals wandered close to their home, and sometimes the harsh winters tested their endurance. But Clara no longer felt fear as she had in the past. She had learned to adapt, to stay calm, and to face difficulties with courage. Each challenge strengthened their bond. Each problem solved together made their partnership stronger. One cold morning, Clara woke to find a small fox near the edge of the clearing. The fox watched her curiously, tilting its head, and then ran off when she made a gentle sound. She laughed quietly. "Even the forest animals are starting to trust me," she said. The mountain man smiled, a rare, soft expression crossing his rugged face. "You have learned quickly," he said. "You understand the forest and it understands you. That is why you are safe here." Clara realized that safety was not only about protection from danger, but about understanding the world around her. The forest had taught her to be aware, patient, and respectful. It had also taught her to rely on her own strength and to trust in the guidance of someone who cared for her. Weeks later, they traveled deeper into the mountains to find a better place for hunting and gathering. Along the way, Clara noticed how much she had changed. She could recognize animal tracks, identify edible plants, and move through the terrain without making a sound. She felt proud of her accomplishments, but also grateful for the mountain man who had taught her everything. One evening, as they sat by a fire near a small waterfall, Clara spoke softly. "I never imagined my life could be like this. I thought I was worthless, sold for $2 at an auction. But now I feel strong. I feel alive." The mountain man looked at her with a calm intensity. "You always had strength," he said. "I only showed you how to find it." Clara smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. She realized that the forest and the mountain man had given her more than survival skills. They had given her confidence, independence, and hope. She was no longer a frightened girl at the mercy of others. She was a young woman capable of shaping her own life. As the seasons changed, Clara and the mountain man built a life together that was simple, honest, and full of purpose. They worked together to plant small gardens, catch fish, and improve their cabin. Clara even began to teach herself how to read the forest more deeply, learning the signs of changing weather, animal behavior, and plant growth. One autumn evening, they sat together on the porch of their cabin, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. The sky was painted with shades of red and gold. Clara leaned against the mountain man, feeling a sense of peace she had never known in her old life. "You saved me," she said softly, "but you also taught me how to save myself." He nodded, a quiet pride in his eyes. "You did all the hard work. I only guided you. The forest teaches those who are willing to learn. You were willing." Clara thought about how far she had come, from a girl sold for $2 at an auction to a young woman capable of surviving in the wilderness. She had experienced fear, doubt, and uncertainty, but she had also learned courage, trust, and resilience. The mountain man had given her a chance at life, and she had taken it fully. Over time, their story became known to a few travelers and villagers who wandered near the forest. They spoke of the young woman who had survived in the wilderness with the giant mountain man, of the lessons she had learned, and of the courage she had shown. Clara realized that her journey could inspire others, not as a tale of fear, but as a story of hope, strength, and the power of trust. One winter evening, as snow gently fell on the trees, Clara and the mountain man sat by the fire, reflecting on their life. Clara smiled at him. "I never thought a day would come when I would feel this safe, this strong, and this alive." He reached over and touched her shoulder gently. "You belong here," he said simply, "and you have made this place your home. That is your strength." Clara looked out into the snowy forest, feeling a sense of completion and possibility. She understood now that the auction, the fear, and the $2 price had only been the beginning. What mattered was the life she had built, the lessons she had learned, and the bond she had formed with the man who had changed her fate. The forest was quiet, except for the crackle of the fire and the soft sound of falling snow. Clara knew that challenges would always come, but she was no longer afraid. She had learned to face the world with courage, skill, and heart, and she had learned that life could change in an instant, that hope could come from the most unexpected places, and that trust and kindness could transform a life completely. As the fire dimmed and the night grew still, Clara felt a sense of gratitude deep in her soul. The mountain man had said she was ready for anything the forest gave her. She realized now that she was ready for life itself. Together they would continue to face whatever came, side by side, strong, wise, and unafraid. Her journey from fear to freedom was complete. The girl sold for $2 had become a young woman who had found safety, trust, and a home in the forest. And in that quiet, snowy wilderness, Clara knew that her life had truly changed forever. The forest was dense, and the sunlight barely reached the soft ground beneath the tall trees. Clara followed closely behind the giant mountain man, who moved with surprising ease over roots, rocks, and uneven earth. Each step he took seemed deliberate, confident, as if the forest had been his home for a lifetime. Clara stumbled a few times but caught herself realizing she had to keep up. She could not afford to fall behind. After a long walk, they reached a small clearing. A gentle stream ran through it, its water sparkling in the filtered sunlight. The mountain man knelt and cupped some water in his hands. "Drink," he said simply, handing her the water. Clara knelt beside him, grateful for the cool liquid. She had never felt thirst like this before. Every sip seemed to wash away some of the fear that had weighed her down since the auction. You live here?" she asked quietly, trying to sound brave. The man looked at her, his eyes calm but alert. "I do. I stay where I can survive and be free. It is not easy, but it is honest." Clara nodded, unsure what to say next. The forest was beautiful, yet strange. She had grown up near small towns where everything was orderly and predictable. Here there was danger in every rustle of the leaves, in every shadow. But there was also freedom. Something about the man's presence made her feel safer than she had in months. They set up a small camp beside the stream. The mountain man worked quickly, gathering dry wood for a fire and arranging branches to make a simple shelter. Clara watched, amazed at his skill. He moved without wasting a single motion, and the forest seemed to respond to him. "I can do this too," she said timidly, picking up a handful of twigs. He nodded, a small smile on his rugged face. "You will learn. It is not as hard as it seems. You must respect the forest, and it will provide for you." Clara felt a sense of curiosity growing inside her. For the first time, she was not thinking about what might harm her. Instead, she was thinking about what she could do, how she could survive, how she could become strong. As the fire crackled that evening, the mountain man began to teach her basic survival skills. He showed her how to recognize edible plants and how to avoid dangerous ones. He taught her to find clean water and how to build small traps for catching fish. Clara listened carefully, her eyes wide with amazement. She had never imagined that life could be so different from the town she had known. "You must always be aware," he said. "The forest can help you, but it can also harm you if you are careless." "Do not forget that," Clara nodded. She realized he was not only teaching her practical skills, but also how to think, how to observe, and how to respect the world around her. There was a quiet strength in him, a patience that made her feel safe. Days passed, and Clara's fear began to fade. She learned to move quietly through the trees, to spot signs of animals, and to help with small tasks around their camp. She felt a growing sense of pride in her abilities. The mountain man noticed her progress and would occasionally glance at her with approval. "You are learning quickly," he said one evening as they gathered firewood. "You have the mind to survive here." One afternoon, while walking along the stream to check for fish traps, Clara slipped on a wet rock. She tumbled forward and landed hard on the ground, scraping her knee. Pain shot through her leg and she froze for a moment, unsure if she could continue. The mountain man was immediately at her side. "You will be fine," he said, examining her knee. He cleaned the scrape with water from the stream and wrapped it carefully with a piece of cloth from his pack. "Pain is a part of learning. Do not fear it." Clara looked at him, feeling a mixture of gratitude and admiration. He had saved her at the auction, guided her through the forest, and now, even when she was hurt, he was there to help. She realized that she was not alone, not anymore. That night, as they sat beside the fire, Clara began to ask questions about him. "Why did you choose me?" she asked softly. He stared into the flames for a moment before replying. "You were in danger. I could see it. Not many would notice. I cannot change the world, but I can protect one person at a time." Clara felt a lump in her throat. His words were simple, but they carried meaning she could feel deep inside. He did not see her as property, as others had at the auction. He saw her as a person, and for the first time she felt that someone truly cared. Over the following weeks, Clara learned more about the forest and about the MountainMan. He told her about the challenges he had faced growing up in the mountains, how he had learned to survive and to live honestly. He spoke of kindness, of respect, and of freedom. Clara listened, absorbing every word, and she began to understand that life could be lived differently, not just surviving, but thriving even in hardship. One morning, after a stormy night, Clara and the MountainMan emerged from their shelter to find the forest refreshed and sparkling with morning dew. The MountainMan handed her a small bundle of berries. "For your breakfast," he said. Clara smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. She had never imagined that such simple acts, water, food, safety, and guidance, could bring so much comfort. She realized that her life had already begun to change, not because of wealth or safety in town, but because someone had cared enough to guide her. The forest was no longer just a place of fear. It had become a place of learning, of growth, and of trust, and as Clara looked at the MountainMan, standing tall and strong, she felt a quiet determination forming inside her. She would survive. She would learn, and perhaps in time she could even find happiness in this unexpected life. The MountainMan watched her closely, as if sensing her thoughts. "You are ready for more," he said simply. Clara nodded, unsure what he meant, but she trusted him. She had no reason not to. That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Clara felt something she had not felt in a long time: hope. The auction, the fear, and the $2 price seemed far away now, almost like a dream. Her life was no longer controlled by others. For the first time, she was choosing her path, guided by someone who had rescued her when no one else would. And in that quiet forest under the stars, Clara understood that her journey had only just begun. She did not know what challenges lay ahead, but she knew that with the MountainMan by her side she would face them, and perhaps even thrive.